Good morning, Pak Zikri. I am Rida Elfreda Agustiana from NM Banten. Will present about evaluating electricity tariff reform and consumer producer welfare impact in Indonesia. The outline of this presentation consists of overview, introduction, strategic energy context, market value and policy justification, policy design and institutional analysis, macroeconomic and fiscal implications, trade-offs and policy risks, policy recommendation, and conclusion. The overview of this study is to evaluate welfare and fiscal implications of Indonesia's 2022 electricity tariff reform targeted to high-capacity residential customer, which is Group R2 and R3. So the government increased the tariff for about 17.6% from 1,444.70 rupiah per kilowatt hours to 1,699.53 rupiah per kilowatt hours. And after that, the consumption dropped in short term for about 2.64%, with short-run demand proved inelastic at minus 0.15. Consumers absorb costs rather than cutting usage. And because of that, the consumer get the welfare loss for 17.9%, with the reduction in consumer surplus relative to initial expenditure. And because of that, PLN get gain for about 14.5%, so PLN revenue from affected segments increased, reducing fiscal pressure. And then the targeted adjustment had a limited inflationary impact estimated at 0.019%, and the structural gap between production costs and regulated tariff persists, indicating that the reform represents incremental rationalization rather than full cost-reflective pricing. Sustainable electricity pricing reform in Indonesia requires gradual cost-reflective adjustment, improved subsidy targeting, and coordinated institutional governance to balance efficiency, equity, and macroeconomic stability. Electricity pricing serves two important functions in Indonesia: protecting households and stabilizing broader economy. As can be seen in figure below, power generation mix remains heavily reliant on fossil fuels, particularly coal, which accounts for 66.43% of PLN's energy mix. Evidence from earlier reforms shows that subsidy reductions introduced after 2013 led to electricity savings of around 7% by 2015. Producer surplus is largely maintained because government compensates PLN for the gap between regulated tariffs and production costs. As a result, welfare burden shifts from producers to state budget or APBN, increasing fiscal distortion and weakening incentives for cost efficiency. Next is about policy background. So table in the left shows the main consumer of electricity classification consists of several groups, including residential, industrial, and government. So for group R1 with capacity 450 VA is fully subsidized, while for group R1 for 900 VA is partially subsidized, and group R2 and R3 are non-subsidized. And Indonesia has conducted electricity reform several times. In 2010 until 2012, the subsidized tariff maintained below cost for R1 households, and then the reform in 2013 until 2015 is gradual reduction of subsidized and implementation of automatic tariff adjustment or ATA for R1, non-poor, and higher capacity residential. And the reform in 2017, it is full implementation of ATA for non-subsidized group R2, R3, industrial and commercial users. And in 2022, reform targeted residential tariff adjustment for R2 and R3. And then for the picture below, that according to 2025 government budget plan, electricity subsidies constitute the largest component, around 44% of total energy subsidy allocation, amounting to 88 trillion rupiah out of 202 trillion rupiah. And within electricity subsidy allocation, the largest share is directed to Group R1 for capacity 450 VA households, amounting to 40.16%, totaling 49 trillion rupiah, covering approximately 24 million consumers with electricity consumption of 27 terawatt hours. The 2022 reform shielded the vulnerable while rationalizing prices for the capable. By isolating the top tier, the government separates tariff reform from mass market inflation shocks. So for protected or subsidized household, it is Group R1 with capacity 450 VA and selected 900 VA. The government frozen the tariff with reason social protection and energy poverty prevention. And for adjusted tariff, or cost reflective, it is to Group R2 with capacity 3,500 until 5,500 VA and Group RT with capacity more than 6,600 VA. So the tariff increase and the reason is cost reflective and the fiscal correction. So there are several strategic importance for electricity policy. The first is energy security. To meet the electricity demand, the national installed capacity reached 100.6 gigawatt in 2024, and coal-fired power plants account for 53.99% of installed capacity, followed by gas-based generation. In contrast, renewable sources including hydro only 7.01%, geothermal 2.62%, and the small portion of bioenergy and solar. The cost dominance contributes to short-run energy security and system stability, but carries long-term consequences on future carbon pricing mechanisms. On demand side, electricity tariffs that are kept below cost through subsidies tend to encourage higher consumption. From economic standpoint, the situation can be understood through deadweight loss concept. When prices are set below cost, the consumption rises, resulting fiscal pressure from subsidy payments and inefficiencies in resource allocation. The other aspect of strategic importance consists of fiscal stability, with electricity subsidies projected at 88 trillion rupiah in 2025. Fiscal burden competes with other development priorities such as infrastructure, health, and renewable investment. And in terms of energy transition, the low tariffs reduce competitiveness of renewable energy relative to coal-based generation. And from industrial strategy side, competitive pricing can support manufacturing growth and attract investment. And from social welfare side, capacity-based targeting does not perfectly correspond to income status. Some non-poor households may still benefit from subsidized categories, raising concerns about targeting accuracy. Next discussion is about market value and policy justification. From the environmental externality side, Indonesia's electricity generation remains heavily coal-dependent and generate carbon emissions and local pollution. And from energy poverty side, electricity is an essential service. The cost-reflective tariffs may reduce affordability for low-income households. And from natural monopoly and market power side, electricity transmissions and distribution exhibit natural monopoly characteristics due to high fixed infrastructure costs. And then social welfare subsidy distortion and fiscal misallocation aspect. In Indonesia, below-cost electricity tariffs do not reduce producer surplus because PLN receives government compensation. Instead, the fiscal burden shifts to the state budget. And from the graphic, we can see that the total subsidy that government provided to electricity consumers is represented by the area A plus B plus deadweight. The deadweight, or DW, is the triangular area between the demand curve and the supply curve over the range between QM and QS. It represents the net welfare loss caused by overconsumption when the subsidized price is set below the market equilibrium price. From the price control inefficiency side, when regulated tariffs are set below market price, electricity consumption and consumer surplus increase and will generate deadweight loss. To illustrate partial price correction can reduce efficiency, below is calculation of 2022 tariff reform. So the amount of 2022 tariff increase or delta P percentage is 17.6%, and the impact on consumption on short term is minus 2.64%, the medium-term impact is minus 7.04%, and the percentage decrease in consumer surplus relative to initial expenditure is 17.87%. Therefore, the 2022 electricity tariff reform generated a significant welfare loss for higher income households due to the large price increase combined with inelastic demand. And then from public good characteristic, so the electricity is not a pure public good because it is rightful and excludable. However, access to electricity generates positive spillovers in education, healthcare, productivity, and digital inclusion. And the government intervention in Indonesia's electricity market is justified due to the natural monopoly structure, equity concerns, and environmental externalities. Next is about policy design and institutional analysis. From policy design aspect, by increasing tariffs for higher income households, the government sought to reduce subsidy distortion while protecting vulnerable groups. And empirical evidence suggests that most of the benefits of energy subsidies accrue to middle and high income groups. And from the distributional impact, the beneficiaries are state budget or APBN through reduced compensation burden, and then PLN via improved short-term revenue performance, and low-income households R1 who remain protected from tariff increases. And the cost bearers are high-capacity residential R2 and R3 who experience measurable welfare loss, and political decision makers who endure public scrutiny. The table on the left shows the institutional roles. So the institution consists of Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources or MEMR. The roles is sectoral regulator and policy designer. And then the Ministry of Finance or MOF. The role is fiscal authority. And then PLN with role market operator and implementing agency. And then Bank of Indonesia, the role is macroeconomic stabilizer. And Bappenas, the role is strategic planning authority, and Parliament, the role is political oversight. And then from incentive compatibility side, affect the consumers, PLN, then government. In the side of consumers, when prices go up, people naturally become more mindful of their usage, so the reform strengthens the incentive. And from PLN, revenue improvements help PLN's financial position. But if government compensation remains high, the company may still rely on fiscal support rather than efficiency gains. And the government faces competing incentives between fiscal consolidation versus political stability. And in the figure below, we can see that the persistent gap between average production cost and regulated retail tariff creates structural reliance on government compensation. When utilities are repeatedly reimbursed, incentives to pursue aggressive cost efficiency improvements may weaken. The risks of regulatory failure include political tariff risk, targeting errors, institutional moral hazard, and transition inconsistency. And regarding the evaluation of efficiency, sustainability, and distortion, conclude that the 2022 reform improves allocative efficiency by reducing price distortion for high-capacity residential and narrowing debt rate loss. Next is about macroeconomic and fiscal implications regarding APBN burden. So the structural gap between production costs and regulated tariffs continues to impose a persistent burden on the state budget. For the 2022 reform, we calculate that the impact on PLN revenue or delta R is 14.5% and the fiscal impact on the state budget savings of 3 trillion rupiah. And from the graphic on the right side, the combined APBN contribution to electricity subsidies and compensation reached 142 trillion rupiah in 2023, equivalent to approximately 5% of central government spending and 0.7% of GDP. And in the graphic in the left below, many developing countries allocate substantial shares of GDP to fuel and energy subsidies. And then from the subsidy sustainability side, from the table in the right side, the pattern indicates that substantial share of PLN's revenue growth is supported not only by electricity sales, but also by increasing fiscal transfers. It is hidden fiscal obligations embedded in the electricity pricing system. And then from inflation side, in 2022 reform, the estimated additional inflationary impact was only 0.019%, indicates that reforms did not generate significant macroeconomic pressure. And from exchange rate, the exchange rate shocks are transferred to state budget, increasing exposure to macroeconomic and potentially limiting fiscal space. From the energy import dependent side, electricity pricing affects energy import dependence through demand, and managing demand growth through pricing and efficiency measures becomes strategically important for fuel requirements and long-term investment planning. And the twin deficits, energy subsidies can worsen twin deficits by two linked mechanisms. The first is fiscal deficit. The rising subsidy and compensation payments increase fiscal expenditure commitments, particularly during periods of elevated oil prices and currency depreciation. And the current account deficit, the underpriced electricity encourages higher consumption. This increases fuel requirements, which can either raise imports or reduce export revenues. And from industrial competitive side, the excessive tariff suppression may support short-term cost advantages, but undermine the structural foundations of industrial competitiveness over time. So here is the trade-offs versus policy risks. So it is considering the policy choice and time horizon. The first is subsidy versus fiscal sustainability. The gain is short-term affordability and the risk is long-term fiscal burden. And then the coal phase out versus tariff increase. The gain is cost stability and the risk is transition increase system cost and tariffs eventually. And the energy transition versus energy security. The gain is avoid blackouts and risk reduce carbon dependence. And carbon tax versus competitiveness, the gain is innovation and efficiency and risk is competitiveness pressure. And then between the short-term tensions and long-term, there are four policy dimensions: subsidy, tariff increases, coal reliance, and carbon pricing, which for subsidy, the short-term gains is affordability and long-term implication is fiscal risk. So the policy recommendation consists of 4 points. The first is pricing mechanism. So move to semi-annual rules-based adjustment reflecting BPP or electricity generation costs, exchange rates, and fuel prices. The second is social protection. So implement lifeline block or subsidies per kilowatt hours plus cash transfers for the near poor during transitions. The third is precision targeting. So abandon capacity to categorize property and adopt DTKS or integrated social welfare data to stop leakage to non-poor. And the fourth is system efficiency. Reform will be more acceptable if consumers see benefits. Set and publish KPIs for PLN so higher tariffs are coupled with improved service. So this is the institutional coordination roadmap recommendations. There are 3 phases. Phase 1 in 0 until 6 months, data and governance readiness, and then harmonized customer classification with DTKS, with lead by MEMR and MOF. And for the phase 2, from 6 until 18 months, it is pilot and controlled rollout. So introduce lifeline block and cash transfer pilots in selected provinces, lead by MEMR by regulation and PLN for implementation. And phase 3, from 18 until 36 months, scale up and institutionalization to reallocate fiscal savings to network investment and transition priorities, led by MOF and Bappenas. And then the risk mitigation strategy consists of inflation, social, institutional, and credibility. For inflation, implement tariffs adjustment during periods of relatively low inflation to minimize macroeconomic disruption. And then from political economic considerations, consists of political timing and sequencing, framing and communication strategy, and managing resistance from stakeholders. So the conclusion of this paper, the evaluation of Indonesia's 2022 electricity tariff reform indicate that the 17.6% tariff increase for upper-tier households reduced consumption by approximately 2.64% in the short run, while increasing PLN revenue by around 14.5%. And moving forward, a sequence and credible roadmap is essential, with short-term, medium-term, and long-term roadmap to reallocate fiscal savings to network investment and transition priorities. And by combining gradual price correction with targeted social protection and institutional coordination across MEMR, MUF, PLN, BI, and Bappenas, Indonesia can reduce debt weight loss, improve fiscal resilience, and support long-term energy transition objectives without undermining macroeconomic stability. Thank you very much for your attention, Pak.